In college, you're all in the same school, you know the same professors or classes or extracurriculars or landmarks. But when you graduate, you kind of all go off into different places.
Hey guys, it's Katie
and Kim.
My sister and I are back for the series where we talk about our experience as an international student, and this one is really exciting because we are talking about life after college versus college life. I say it like that because
I've lived life after college and she has not.
Yeah, basically. She's 4 years older than me, so she's been out of college 4 years. I literally just graduated. So this will be an interesting take because I think we've had to do some transitioning, but you'll get both perspectives of someone who's just experiencing life after college and someone who's a bit later on in that journey. We are going to dive deep into all these topics, including work, social life, family, finances, lifestyle. Before we start, make sure to watch the previous videos in the series where we talk about, first of all, whether studying abroad was worth it, how we prepared for it, culture shock, and the hardest parts about being an international student, which have now led to this. Let's begin. How different is post-grad life versus being in college? Maybe we can start with work. For me, I'm actually going back to the States to work. My work also isn't a 9-to-5 job. It's flexible, it's remote, and I'm doing like a bunch of different projects at once. Whereas
what I did when I first graduated from college is very different from what I do now, and how I viewed work then is very different from how I view work now. So after I graduated from college, I came back home to the Philippines and I worked at a company. And it was a more traditional like 9-to-5. Like I'd go to work maybe 8 or 9 a.m., come back home. After work, I was like dead tired. I would just be like a potato, like just kind of be a vegetable on the couch. There was a much clearer delineation between work and non-work things. Whereas in college, I think life revolves around school, and not just your schoolwork, but also your extracurriculars, your friendships. So it's like one big mush.
Okay, what about social life? I think in my case, I really haven't experienced much yet, but one thing I'm immediately noticing is friends are gonna be scattered across the States and the world. It's not like college where you can literally hit up someone and in 5 minutes they will be at your apartment. But now 5 to 10 minutes has turned into 5-hour car rides. My friends and I, like, we're talking about reuniting in homecoming, which is 2 months, like 2 months later. And we're planning maybe like bigger trips, like maybe Southeast Asia trips, which would be a year from now. So it's kind of crazy because we went from seeing each other every single day for 2 months to seeing them once in 2 months.
Kind of going off of what my sister said, definitely the context in which you speak to your friends definitely changes, because in college you're all in the same school, you know the same professors or classes or extracurriculars or landmarks. But when you graduate, you kind of all go off into different places, and if you're living in the same city, maybe you'll like see each other, but your work schedule will probably be very different. The type of bosses you have will be different. The work culture, the company culture will be different. Where you live might be different, and it might be harder to meet up with the same frequency as you did in college. The other thing is like people grow at really different rates after college, and so your life stage also starts to shift. Some of my friends maybe right now are getting married, thinking about having children, and I'm like, that's like not my life stage at all now. Some people are thinking about getting graduate degrees, some people already have graduate degrees, and so the context of your lives just sprawls in totally different directions. Location also. So instead of like, you know, meeting each other physically, maybe it's a phone call. Finding ways to keep up the communication, whether that's like sending an article or sending a video if you like the same music. I was also able to make new friends in the kind of environment that I'm in. So after coming back home to the Philippines, I reconnected with high school friends, met like friends of friends. That way I've been able to form my own group of people here that I can sort of hang out with and hit up if I want to go out Friday night or Saturday night, or if I'm having a birthday or they're having a birthday, we'll like celebrate. So it's not that difficult to stay in contact if you're someone who keeps up with your friends, because I know some people who just drop off the face of the earth and takes them like a month, 2 months, 6 months later they'll reply and be like, so sorry, I missed your message. Everything just kind of goes all over the place, and it's really about the commitment and the effort that you put in to sustain those relationships that will give them longevity, I think.
Let's talk about finances. At my stage of like after graduation, a lot of people are definitely progressing towards being financially independent. That is something I'm also working towards. And because of this, like I've been budgeting a lot more seriously. Like I've been tracking every single thing I spend. So I have a spreadsheet where I write down every single transaction I made. I categorize them into, okay, is this like rent, food,
transportation,
yes,
entertainment,
all of those things I will track. I think I've been trying to have a lot more minimalist life also. So since the pandemic, which is when I realized, wait, I literally don't need to be buying things all the time. I don't need to be going out and like having so many experiences, because I found the most precious things in my life are free. And that's like relationships with people and like my faith. But I've also been having a lot more conversations with friends about how they budget, what their financial goals are. A lot of my friends are like FIRE, which is
financial independence, retire early.
Yes. A lot of them are more like, I'm gonna earn as much money as I can right now, find the top paying job, and invest very wisely. And so we've been having a lot more conversations about, okay, like, what do you invest in? Like, what's your strategy? Blah, blah.
Yeah, I think for me, my senior year, I definitely became much more conscious about my spending. And like my sister said, like I started a spreadsheet and tracked every single expense and kind of categorized them. And I set a budget depending on my income and how much I want to save. So I think the first thing that I would say to do is just try to figure out what you're working towards, and then also try to figure out how much you usually spend, and then try to find a happy medium and kind of tweak as needed. For me, if I wanted big ticket items, like things that were more expensive than I was necessarily like able to afford, then I would cut down on certain things for a certain month or for a period of months and then buy that item.
Another thing I do with that is if I want a big ticket item that's more expensive, then I keep a list of things I want and how expensive they are, and I wait for sales. Let's say one thing I really want right now is like a Dyson Airwrap that's like $600-700. So I'm like, I'm gonna see if maybe come Black Friday there's a good deal. Or if, you know, friends are asking, like, what do you want? Sometimes, like, friends will, like, pool together money so that everyone will, like, contribute a little bit to get their friends something they want. I know I've done that for friends before. Thinking about that, but also thinking about, at the end of the day, reminding myself that whether or not I get a Dyson Airwrap isn't going to significantly, like, change my life. Being able to delay that gratification has made me also just appreciate the things I do have in my life and also take good care of them when I am able to buy it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there was a period where I realized that after I buy something that I want, like I'll want something else. And so it's a constant cycle. It's like the hedonistic treadmill, right? So for me, it's like if that's the pattern that's going to happen, then I should just kind of prolong the period in which it takes me to attain the thing that I want. And that way it's the anticipation of the item that will give me that utility, that satisfaction, that like excitement in my life.
The biggest thing I've done to cut costs though is like cook instead of eat out. Especially senior year, I think I realized like I had tried most of the restaurants in Ithaca and realized like I can just cook this and I can do it for a lot cheaper. And also having roommates in apartments saves so much money, not only because it's usually cheaper like per person, but also because everybody pools together shared appliances. So like kitchen tools we share. Like thank God for all my roommates who were Asian American, so their parents would like come in and like give them everything and I could just borrow them and use them.
I think one thing that actually my brothers often say is that they don't like focusing on cutting costs. They like focusing on like maximizing profit. So some people will really scrimp and try not to spend that much, and other people will really be like, okay, how do I actually earn much more money than I'm earning now?
Let's talk about family relationships.
Ooh.
One immediate thing I noticed after college is I'm treated like an adult now, and that has been really empowering because when we have conversations, I feel like I'm talking to my parents as friends and people I can reason with, I can push back on respectfully. Whereas growing up, I was like, can't argue, like must obey everything they say like goes. I don't want to talk back, as they call it. Now, as someone who's graduated, who's had a lot of experiences, we are able to reach new ground in conversations because it's not just them telling me to do this and do that, but rather like me really being able to ask my parents for their advice on certain topics and to update them on my life. Junior, senior year, that was when I realized, oh my gosh, our parents are also people in progress and people we can help. Our last topic is just adulting in general.
You have to kind of be the secretary of your life. You have to keep track of your finances. You have to keep track of how you're doing in work, your relationships with other people. And I think after you graduate, if you're not in a sort of structured environment, it's difficult to gauge how you're doing relative to everyone else, just because everyone could be doing different things, earning different money, living in different places, cost of living might be different, and so there's a lot of information asymmetry. It's interesting because I feel like in high school and in college you can see what everyone else is doing and you can compare. Like, comparing is a bad thing and you shouldn't do it, but you know, you still do it, and you can kind of be like gauge like, oh, how am I doing relative to other people? But once you've graduated, unless you're like out there asking questions of people, then it's really hard to tell where you are. And not to say that things are linear, because they're not. In college and in high school we have the idea that things are very linear, like you progress in a very structured way, like, you know, grade 9, 10, 11, 12, freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and then you're out in the world. And then some people want to climb that corporate ladder and that's much more structured, but for a lot of others that doesn't exist, and it's more like comes and goes in waves. Some seasons you kind of know what you're doing and some seasons you don't, and after every high there's a low, and after every low there's a high. So life is just much more fluid and cyclical. Yeah, things aren't as clear cut. You also learn that everyone's backgrounds are super different. Especially the more life that you live, the more potential there is for deviations in the things that you do, the people you spend your time with, and the skill sets that you learn. People just become like unique snowflakes at the end, right? And so it's really hard to compare. Something else, at least something that I've felt that has been important for me, is figuring it out, like what it is that I want for my life. Because I think a lot of people, when they enter the real world or adulthood, they have certain ideas of what they should do with their lives and certain career paths they think they should follow, and that's because maybe the school that you went to or your family, your parents, they tell you what you should do with your life, or even things that you see in the media. But honestly, life is so fluid and so unpredictable, and none of the things that I'm doing now are things that I could have imagined when I was in high school and college, and it's so bizarre to me even now. But if you embrace that change and if you embrace possibility, then literally you could do anything. And I'm not exaggerating, as long as you know, take care of your finances and it's something that's feasible. Visa considerations aren't an issue. Know what you want, and that way you can kind of gauge how well you're doing with yourself as opposed to with other people. It's also good to be honest with yourself about what you can do and what you can't do, and not burn out. That's very important.
Super wise. I feel like I'm watching a video on you talk and I'm like absorbing everything. I hope you guys felt the same way. Those are all the topics we're talking about this video. If you want us to talk about other topics, please just message me, or on Instagram when I post on my story for questions, please just send in one. My Instagram is @AlohaKittyX. You can follow me on there if you want to join future videos like this. And until then, I will see you next Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern time, with another new video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you then. Bye!
Bye.